I am an unfavored concubine. One day, I suddenly gained the ability to undo. If I don't like the dishes made by the imperial kitchen, undo, and refresh until my favorite sweet and sour ribs appear. If the fabric sent to me doesn't suit me, undo, until I get my favorite cherry blossom pink. When the emperor summons me, undo, don't bother me. But what I didn't know was that the scumbag emperor was resetting along with me. The memorials he had just finished reviewing were cleared. The martial arts he had just finished practicing were practiced for nothing, all for nothing. The concubine who was just carried in to serve him was carried away, until one day he ran into me in the back garden. I couldn't be bothered with him and quickly tried to undo. It didn't work. Holy crap. Unable to undo. The emperor pressed closer, step by step.
What is undo? What is holy crap?
I knelt on the ground, on the verge of tears. Yeah. This consort accidentally stepped on the little grass here and felt deeply guilty, regretting that I should not have stepped on it. That is why I said undo, take back. I was incredibly guilty, burying my head deeper and deeper, my voice getting smaller and smaller. This consort then saw how lush the grass was and thought that if I were to lie down on the lawn, it would surely be very comfortable. So this consort said, lying on grass, cow. If there were a crack in the ground right now, I would definitely crawl in and build a villa. Xuan Yu's ice-cold voice echoed above my head.
Since you like it so much, then lie on this grass for 2 hours before returning to your chambers. Xiao Shunzi, watch her lie here. If she dares to move even a single bit, beat her to death on the spot.
What a psychopath. I was just about to stand up, but Xuan Yu shot a cold glare my way, and my weak knees gave out, forcing me to kneel again. Xuan Yu's dark, bottomless eyes sized me up.
Then lie here for 6 hours before going back.
For someone who had been practically invisible for 2 years since entering the palace, it only took a single day for the tale of Lady Choi lying flat on the grass of the imperial garden for 6 long hours to spread throughout the inner palace. Along with it, the phrase "Wo Cao" became the talk of the town. All the way back to my palace, I overheard the servants gossiping from time to time.
Lady Choi actually lay down for 6 hours. Another servant waved a hand in dismissal. That is called lying on the grass. It literally means to lie down on the grass. So uncultured. How terrifying.
Oh no, oh no, oh no. I can never look at the phrase "Wo Cao" the same way again. I used to think that having the ability to recall my words was a lifesaver given to me by God. A modern transmigrator who is terrible at palace intrigue, who knew God had another trick up his sleeve. Xuan Yu can actually hear my inner thoughts. As a modern person heavily influenced by internet comments, and being in this gossip-filled inner palace, how could I possibly keep myself from complaining? But complaining about the tyrant emperor will literally cost me my life. It seems I have to avoid him even more in the future. I need to quickly figure out an excuse to skip the palace banquet in 3 days. A headache, leg pain, a stomachache, faking blindness, faking a mute, faking a coma. Just then, my personal maid, Linger, came running in with great excitement, disrupting my brainstorming session.
My lady, wonderful news.
Linger, calm down. Haven't I told you to remain emotionally stable? I straightened my collar. I spoke in a serious tone. What is it?
Take a guess, my lady.
I won't, just tell me.
Hurry up. Xiao Shunzi told me that His Majesty selected your name tablet today.
Oh, what? My cup shattered on the floor. I stopped thinking. My mind went completely blank. Actually, my soul traveled here to inhabit this body. Cui Xiajin's father was a minor county magistrate, and she was his only daughter. He pinned all the hopes of the family's honor and disgrace on his daughter in the imperial palace. But Cui Xiajin was simple-minded and had no powerful background. Before she had even been in the palace for a month, and before she could be favored by the emperor, she was murdered by some high-ranking consort. And so, I ended up here. After inheriting Cui Xiajin's memories, I secretly made up my mind. My ultimate goal is just to survive in this palace. During my 2 years in the palace, I could count the number of times I'd seen the emperor on one hand. The maids around me gradually left, leaving only Linger, who served me faithfully. Even while complaining about my lack of ambition, Linger pulled me up from the bed.
My lady, get up quickly. Let me help you bathe and dress, so you can look beautiful when you see His Majesty.
No, I don't want to. His Majesty can already hear my inner thoughts. How am I supposed to attend to him in bed? What if I complain in my mind and rewind time during the act? Making His Majesty keep repeating his actions. That picture is too vivid. I don't dare imagine it. Linger spoke with earnest concern again.
My lady, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It certainly is once in a lifetime. If I take this opportunity, I can go get reincarnated into a better life. I had a long face. Linger, please make me look ugly to scare His Majesty away.
Your ladyship.
In the end, I was still dragged by Linger to bathe and change. I even put on a newly made dress.
Your ladyship, you must be so excited. Look at you. You don't even know how to smile anymore.
Haha. I just couldn't bring myself to smile. I looked at my despairing self in the mirror. As soon as Xuan Yu entered, he bypassed me and walked straight into the main room as if no one was there. I didn't dare to look up, maintaining my curtsy, but in my mind, I couldn't help but chant, Amitabha, don't look at me. Amitabha, don't look at me. Amitabha, don't. Amitabha, don't look at me. Amitabha, don't look at me. Amitabha, don't look at me. Amitabha.
Shut up.
Xuan Yu barked. Everyone inside and outside the room fell to their knees. I was also so scared that my mind went blank.
Lady Cui, get yourself in here.
Going in probably means I'm dead. Undo. I want to undo. We returned to 1 minute ago again. Xuan Yu entered. I curtsied. This time, I didn't chant anymore. While forcing myself to welcome Xuan Yu with a beaming smile, I babbled in my mind. His Majesty is finally here. I've been waiting forever. He is truly even better than his reputation. His Majesty is so handsome and dashing, with striking eyes and brows. He is indeed the most handsome man in our dynasty. Xuan Yu adjusted his sleeves and said gently,
Rise.
I eagerly sat down next to him. He waved his hand.
Summonin, come in.
An attending eunuch brought a long box and placed it in front of me. Xuan Yu motioned for me to open it. I opened it to take a look. It was indeed a very large piece of sod. Xuan Yu looked at me playfully.
I heard you were lying very comfortably on the lawn that day, so we had that entire patch of sod dug up and bestowed upon you.
Deep breath. Endure it. I put on a bashful smile and said, emphasizing every single word, Thank you, Your Majesty. At the same time, I silently recited Shu-style dramatic literature in my mind. Your Majesty is so kind. To think he'd even give me sod. It makes me feel right at home. But it was obvious that Xuan Yu found these thoughts highly repulsive. The slight downward twitch of the corner of his mouth fully expressed that he thought I was just a brainless idiot. I threw myself into his arms. Your Majesty, you've finally arrived. This concubine will attend to Your Majesty so you can rest. That was why I had specifically put on heavy makeup today, pretending to be utterly impatient. He would surely find it extremely annoying in a moment and leave on his own, but things did not go as smoothly as I had planned. Xuan Yu did not push me away. Instead, with a soft chuckle, he wrapped his arms around my waist, his eyes filled with flirtatious charm.
Very well.
I was pinned in his embrace, unable to move. Seeing this, the servants all tactfully withdrew. Xuan Yu drew closer and closer to me. Under the candlelight, even the fine peach fuzz on his face was clearly visible. Finally, Xuan Yu stopped right before my collarbone and took a sniff.
My beauty smells so sweet.
Then, he pinched the soft flesh of my waist. Reason lost the battle to instinct. Before my brain could even think, I instantly pushed him away and cursed him in my mind. Stinky, pervert. Xuan Yu's face instantly darkened. Recall. I cried out in sheer panic. Once again, we went back to 1 minute ago. At this moment, I should have just thrown myself into Xuan Yu's arms. Yet, for some reason, Xuan Yu's face was not as playful as it had been a minute ago. It was just as dark as it had just been. I let out 2 feeble coughs, rubbing my temples. Your Majesty, your servant has a terrible headache. Xuan Yu whispered in my ear.
A headache. It won't hurt once it is chopped off.
2 minutes later, I was kneeling straight as a board in front of Xuan Yu. Your Majesty, I was wrong. Xuan Yu absent-mindedly toyed with the jade pendant at his waist, looking at me.
What did you do wrong?
I replied tearfully. I shouldn't have worn so much perfume. I shouldn't have thrown myself at you. Xuan Yu said nothing, taking a gentle sip of his tea. I completely lost my nerve. I shouldn't have let you recall. I really couldn't take it anymore and could only surrender. Who would have thought Xuan Yu was a major glitch in my recall ability? I won't be put to death, will I? Please, no. I haven't even eaten my way through all the kitchens in the palace yet. I haven't gone out of the palace to travel and see the sights. I haven't even had a sweet romance yet. Xuan Yu slammed his teacup down like a gavel.
Shut up. How incredibly noisy.
I was forced to stop grumbling in my mind and quickly showed submission. Spare my life, Your Majesty. Your servant will never dare to do it again. Xuan Yu squatted down to look me in the eye.
That depends on your performance.
Xuan Yu interrogated me about all my secrets, even the embarrassing story of running into the wrong restroom and being forced to recall it was blurted out.
So, in other words, except for me, Yon and anything else is within the scope of your recall ability.
I nodded like a loyal sycophant. 2 minutes, Your Majesty. I can't recall anything past 2 minutes, and I can't use it if the distance is too far. Xuan Yu let out a smirk. The smile gave me goosebumps all over.
Jinner,
Xuan Yu helped me up, stroking my fingertips. I fearfully pulled my hand back. He changes faces faster than turning pages. This bodes no good. Xuan Yu maintained his gentlemanly smile and said,
Of course, it is a good thing. We are willing to give you a chance to redeem yourself.
he was very understanding and added,
If you are unwilling, we have 100 ways to make you die. You can choose a way to die yourself.
I got it. So he was asking me to choose between agree and confirm, between which to make a choice. What else could I say? Of course, I agree and confirm. Xuan Yu wanted me to play along in a drama with him, helping him eliminate disloyal old officials in the imperial court, and by the way, protect his safety. I asked, how can a weak woman like me protect your majesty? Xuan Yu's exact words were,
If we encounter assassins, your recall can let us catch them at the first opportunity.
what if the assassins hide in the shadows and can't be caught immediately? What do we do? Xuan Yu smiled, a bit sinisterly.
To use you as a human shield.
And so, I became the emperor's new favorite. Whenever the emperor came to the inner palace, he would definitely rest at my Furong pavilion. Of course, all of this was just a show for outsiders. Once Xuan Yu entered Furong pavilion, he was either buried in handling official business or quietly reading books. Aside from constantly finding me too noisy and frequently banishing me to the side hall, I felt our cooperation was going quite smoothly. Xuan Yu handled the inside, while I handled the outside. Literally speaking, when he wanted to win over a group of talented scholars, he would claim to the public that noble consort Cui wanted to hear the most peerless poetry in the world. When he wanted to rebuild the city walls and reinforce the defenses, he would claim to the public that noble consort Cui wanted to watch all the citizens parade in the winter. When he wanted to cut the salaries of ministers and concubines to replenish the national treasury, he would claim to the public that he was cutting expenses to build the star-plucking tower for noble consort Cui. In the end, I was just a scapegoat carrying all sorts of blame on my back. Xuan Yu's mood, however, was exceptionally good. He stopped nagging about me being too noisy and often sent my favorite foods to Furong Pavilion. As I was lying comfortably on a chair, basking in the sun and eating nuts, Xuan Yu suddenly appeared and grabbed my hand. Your Majesty, you scared me to death, he said gently and casually.
I am taking you out of the palace.
Is there another new blame for me to take? He pursed his lips in disapproval and flicked my forehead.
What is going on in your head all day? Of course, I wouldn't make you do something as ungraceful as taking the blame. Today is the Laba festival. I am taking you out of the palace to have some fun.
Your Majesty, are we really not bringing any guards? Won't it be very dangerous? Your Majesty, how about we take a carriage? Won't the ministers be anxious if they can't find Your Majesty? Your Majesty, slow down. The streets are bustling and lively, with the sounds of peddlers crying their wares rising and falling. Dragged along by Xuan Yu, I ran until I was covered in sweat. He leaned in close to my ear.
Don't call me Your Majesty outside.
What should I call you then? I thought to myself, Xuan Yu. You. Little you. He glanced at me.
Young master, why don't you buy a hairpin for your wife?
Xuan Yu naturally stopped in front of the stall. I kept my head down like a quail. Without looking at me, Xuan Yu seriously selected an exquisitely carved wooden hairpin. He turned and handed it to me.
My wife, try this one.
Before I could even process, my lady, recover from it, before he had already put it on me and whispered,
Just call me husband.
why the sudden intimacy? My hand was gently brushed away, and Xuan Yu's warm palm held mine. My heart was pounding. The vendor beamed with a wide smile, chiming in.
You and your husband are truly a loving couple.
Xuan Yu also took me to a tavern to watch plays and visit rouge shops and a silk shop. Finally, he brought me to a willow tree. Under the willow tree was a small grave.
She was my mother.
Xuan Yu said softly.
My birth mother was just a lowly slave. To preserve the royal family's dignity, my imperial father had her secretly killed right after she gave birth to me. This willow tree is the one I planted for her.
A gentle breeze blew, making the willow branches flutter and brush against the hem of his robe, as if a mother were comforting her child. The sky had grown dark. Although I couldn't see clearly, I could feel the sorrow in Xuan Yu's heart. As the emperor, sitting high upon the throne, he had to observe propriety, understand state affairs, know when to advance or retreat, and exercise restraint. A child born to a slave was naturally looked down upon by those in the palace. So even though Xuan Yu had ascended the throne, the ministers in the imperial court still despised him and sought to control him. Therefore, he put on a guise, pretending to be their puppet. Once they lowered their guard, Xuan Yu would shed this shell and reveal the full extent of his ambition. Tonight, was the final moment of his emergence from the cocoon. I took the flower hairpin from my head and placed it before the grave. Your late mother would be comforted. She would be pleased to see your majesty being diligent and loving your people, and employing talented individuals wisely. Xuan Yu slowly caressed the tree bark, murmuring,
Is that so?
Another gust of wind blew, and a willow leaf drifted into my palm. I looked up and met Xuan Yu's gaze. His dark eyes were like a shimmering lake. They are vast enough to hold everything in the world, including me. Indeed, I said, showing him the willow leaf in my hand. Your Majesty, you only need to go ahead and do what you must. Suddenly, an arrow flew by with great force, severing a strand of hair from my temple, which fell beneath the willow tree.
Go.
I had a vague suspicion about who was behind this assassination attempt. Xuan Yu was placed on the throne entirely through the support of Chancellor Lin. Chancellor Lin's ambitions were vast. He wanted to prop up a puppet emperor and keep the real power in his own hands. To keep Xuan Yu under constant surveillance, he sent his own daughter into the palace to control the inner court. But recently, because of my presence, the things Xuan Yu had been doing in secret made him very unhappy. This meant Xuan Yu no longer had any utility to him. Therefore, he would kill Xuan Yu, install another puppet, and launch his grand plan. He would also fight his way out. So, when he took me out of the palace for fun today, he must have had a plan in motion. It seems. We must run in separate directions. Xuan Yu's hand was still gripping mine tightly, with no intention of letting go. I feigned a light-hearted attitude and said with a smile, Have you forgotten, Your Majesty? I have the ability to undo. Don't worry. I will take good care of this little life of mine. Everything around us fell silent. I could only hear Xuan Yu's heartbeat. Xuan Yu, go quickly. Otherwise, it really will be too late. I hid behind a stone pedestal at the fork in the road, the warmth of his embrace still lingering on my fingertips. When he was happy, I would be happy. When he was angry, I would also feel upset. During the days we spent together day and night, the deliberate flattery and pretense gradually faded away, and genuine feelings actually began to grow. But what did Xuan Yu think? Was he mostly using me? Or did he have some sincerity? I tucked the last trace of warmth on my fingertips into my bosom. Who cares? Anyway, this girl has fallen for him, even if it means drawing close to a flame like a moth. I accept it. Xuan Yu had already sent out the signal. The secret guards and the imperial guard he personally trained are on their way. What I need to do is use my recall ability to buy time, holding out until the army arrives. Xuan Yu, after helping you this once, the transaction between us will be fully settled. Wave after wave of assassins track us down and pursue us. Amidst the flash of swords and shadow of blades, I activate my recall ability countless times, evading lethal blade edges and sneak attacks from hidden arrows, rewinding the assassin's attacks time and again, but repeatedly triggering the ability leaves my physical strength utterly depleted. My head feels as if it is being repeatedly struck by a heavy hammer, and my vision goes dark in waves. After dodging a long sword one last time, my legs give out, and I collapse onto the ground, no longer having the strength to summon even a shred of my ability. A stray arrow pierces through the air, carrying a sharp, whistling wind, and instantly strikes me right in the chest. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. It hurts so bad. The arrowhead pierces through layers of fine silk, plunging ruthlessly into the flesh of my chest. A dull, heavy agony spreads along my vessels to every part of my body. Warm blood quickly drenching my lapel, clinging stickily to my skin. Every single breath feels as if razor blades are scraping against my ribcage. The pain so intense that my vision goes black. I want to raise my hand to press down on the wound, but my arm feels as heavy as lead, leaving me to watch helplessly as droplets of blood slide continuously through my fingers, dripping onto the blue stone pavement and blooming into striking plum blossoms of crimson. As my consciousness begins to blur, I hear Xuan Yu's heart-wrenching cries. That voice no longer holds its usual cold hardness and composure, leaving only extreme panic and terror as he calls my name over and over again.
Jinner, hold on. Don't close your eyes.
He breaks through the surrounding assassins and strides quickly toward me. His black dragon robe was slashed in several places by blades, stained with a lot of blood, yet he didn't even bother to wipe it off. He knelt on one knee, gently and carefully gathering me into his arms, terrified that even the slightest force would hurt my wound. His warm palm pressed against my chest, trying to stem the blood that kept gushing out. But the blood was like a broken string of pearls, overflowing through his fingers, staining his palm red, and staining his dragon robe red as well.
We heard your inner thoughts. Jinner.
Xuan Yu's voice was right against my ear, trembling noticeably, with a trace of barely perceptible sobbing.
You said that helping us this time makes us even. You said you wanted to be a carefree consort. We do not permit it. You hold on for us. Otherwise, we will execute your entire clan.
That dog Xuan Yu. Even at a time like this, he doesn't forget to make harsh threats. I'm about to die. What is the use of executing my entire clan? Is he trying to deny me peace even as a wandering ghost? I grumbled feebly in my mind, my eyelids as heavy as if weighed down by thousands of pounds, wanting nothing more than to close my eyes and have a good sleep. But Xuan Yu's shouts by my ear were like a thread, tethering my consciousness tightly.
Good curse. Curse us more, and we won't execute your clan.
Xuan Yu's voice softened, carrying a tone of pleading. He picked me up and turned, striding quickly toward the direction the Imperial Guard was rushing from. His steps were swift and steady, for fear of jostling me.
Jinner, the Imperial physicians will be here soon. Hold on a little longer. Just a little longer, okay?
Dog Xuan Yu. Scoundrel. As these last two terms drifted through my mind, I completely lost consciousness, falling into a boundless darkness. I could only faintly feel Xuan Yu's embrace, which was still warm and steady. Fortunately, I didn't die. When I opened my eyes again, what met my gaze was the familiar lotus pink canopy of Furong Pavilion. A faint scent of wound-healing salve and calming incense lingered around my nose. The wound on my chest was tightly bandaged, although there was still a faint, dull pain. My life was no longer in danger. I wiggled my fingers, and a slight movement immediately came from beside me. Xuan Yu put down the memorial in his hand and quickly walked to the bedside. The bloodshot lines in his eyes had not yet faded, showing utter exhaustion, but the moment he saw me open my eyes, they lit up incredibly bright.
You're awake,
He said, his voice carrying a hint of hoarseness. He reached out to feel my forehead, checking to make sure I didn't have a fever. Then he gently caressed my cheek, his movements incredibly tender.
Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere? Does the wound hurt?
I blinked weakly, looking at the dark circles under his eyes. A trace of softness actually welled up in my heart. This dog, Emperor. He must have watched over me for 3 whole days. Seeing me wake up, Linger, who was nearby, wept tears of joy with red eyes.
Your ladyship, you're finally awake. His Majesty hasn't left Furong Pavilion for 3 days and 3 nights. Aside from handling urgent official business, he spent the rest of the time guarding your bedside. He couldn't even bear to close his eyes.
It turned out that during the 3 days I was unconscious, Xuan Yu had purged the court with thunderous methods. Chancellor Lin's attempt to assassinate the emperor was backed by solid evidence. He was taken to the Meridian Gate by Xuan Yu and beheaded in public. The entire Lin family was executed and their property confiscated. Because noble consort Lin was implicated, she was stripped of all her titles and banished to the cold palace, never to leave the palace again. Along with them, all the spies planted by the Lin faction in the palace were rooted out one by one. Those old ministers who usually relied on Chancellor Lin and constrained Xuan Yu at every turn were either stripped of their official ranks and titles or banished to the borderlands. The Lin family's influence, which once dominated the imperial court, collapsed overnight. Taking advantage of this assassination attempt, Xuan Yu completely reclaimed the real power held by the ministers, truly achieving absolute imperial rule. As for me, I became the greatest contributor in this storm, and also the one Xuan Yu openly placed at the center of his heart. Rewards piled up like a mountain in Lotus Pavilion. The eyes of the palace servants looking at me were filled with respect and envy. Even the Cui family benefited from the association. My magistrate father was promoted 3 ranks in a row and transferred to the capital to take up office. I lay comfortably in bed, leaning against the soft pillows, enjoying being personally fed by Xuan Yu. He scooped up the warm bird's nest soup with a small spoon, blew on it, and only delivered it to my mouth after confirming the temperature was just right. His movements were meticulous and gentle, a completely different person from the high and mighty emperor of ordinary days.
Eat slowly. No one is competing with you.
I opened my mouth, swallowed the bird's nest soup, smacked my lips, and looked at the remainder in the bowl with lingering desire, coquetting. Give me a little more. I'm a patient. I need to eat more and nourish myself more to recover quickly. Xuan Yu shook his head helplessly and pointed to the table nearby. On it lay several empty bowls and plates.
You have already eaten 2 bowls of millet porridge, half a steamed sea bass, a plate of stir-fried seasonal vegetables, a plate of kung pao chicken, and also drank a bowl of pigeon soup today. If you eat any more, your stomach will burst.
I pouted disappointedly, licked my lips, and said, "Fine." I did indeed eat quite a lot, but having just recovered from a serious illness, I always feel like my stomach is empty. Xuan Yu set down the bowl, picked up a silk handkerchief, and gently wiped the corner of my mouth. His thumb brushed over my lips, a movement natural and intimate, making Linger, who was standing nearby, quickly lower her head and pretend to tidy up some things. In the days that followed, Xuan Yu cancelled almost all unnecessary court meetings and social engagements, staying by my side at Furong Pavilion every single day. He was no longer solely focused on handling official business as before. He would keep me company and talk to me, tell me interesting anecdotes from the imperial court, and read storybooks aloud to me. When he reached an amusing part, he would even mimic the characters' tones, making me burst into laughter. Once, I found lying in bed too boring and clamored to go out to the courtyard to sunbathe. Unable to refuse me, Xuan Yu carefully carried me to a rattan chair in the courtyard. He then had someone bring soft cushions to place behind my back and personally covered me with a thin blanket, terrified that I might catch a cold. He sat on a nearby stone stool, reviewing memorials while glancing over at me from time to time. If I so much as yawned, he would immediately put down his memorial and come over to ask if I was tired or if I wanted to go back inside and lie down. Leaning back against the rattan chair, basking in the warm, gentle sunshine, I watched Xuan Yu intently focusing on his official duties. The sunlight washed over him, outlining his striking profile, his high bridge of the nose, his sharply defined lips, and his long eyelashes casting a soft shadow over his eyelids. He was extraordinarily handsome. Your Majesty, I called out softly. Xuan Yu looked up at me, warm amusement shining in his eyes.
What of it?
I immediately turned my head away, pretending to admire the peonies in the courtyard. My heart was pounding wildly. Oh no, oh no. I've been charmed by this dog emperor's good looks again. This won't do. I am someone who is determined to be a chill and indifferent consort. Xuan Yu gave a light chuckle and didn't press any further. He lowered his head and continued reading the memorials, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly, and he even processed them a bit faster. During the days I spent recovering in bed, the little thoughts in my head never stopped. One moment I would call him in my mind, Xuan Yu, and the next moment I would call him, Yu. Occasionally, I even dared to push my luck and call him Little Yu, Yu. Every time I got to Little Yu, Yu, Xuan Yu would give me a helpless glare, but he was never truly angry. Instead, he would give in to my whims and have the pastries I wanted and the toys I desired delivered right to me. On this day, I was calling him secretly in my mind again, Little Yu, Yu. After I called him a few times, Xuan Yu finally put down his memorial, stood up, and walked over to the bedside. He leaned over to look at me, resting both hands on the edge of the bed, trapping me within his embrace. His warm breath brushed against my face, carrying a faint scent of ambergris, making my heart skip a beat instantly.
Why are you calling us Little Yu? You.
He is so close. My gaze unconsciously drifted from his eyes to his lips. Those lips were rosy and lustrous, slightly pursed, and quite surprisingly tempting. I swallowed hard, my fingers unconsciously gripping the brocade quilt beneath me. My heart beating so fast it felt like it would leap out of my chest, as if seeing right through my thoughts. Xuan Yu let out a low chuckle, and his warm lips gently pressed against my earlobe. He bit it gently, and a tingling sensation instantly shot through my entire body, making me shiver all over.
What is wrong?
Your body is getting a bit better, and you're already starting to lust after we.
Then, Jinner, attend to our bed tonight.
Rogue. I reached out to push against his chest, my cheeks burning furiously, and even the tips of my ears flushed completely red. I am still a sick person. How can your majesty have so little tender pity for a fragile flower? Xuan Yu gently pinched my face, the pad of his finger caressing my cheek, his eyes filled with an indulgent, fond smile.
You are the one. Just now your eyes were almost glued to our lips, yet you still dare to deny it.
Before the words had even fully left his mouth, his kiss descended, very gently, landing upon my lips, like a feather brushing past, carrying a faint, refreshing scent. At first it was just a tender exploration, carefully tracing the shape of my lips, but then it gradually deepened, the tip of his tongue prying open my teeth to entwine intimately with me, making me completely lose my mind. I could only reach out to wrap my arms around his neck, allowing him to take whatever he pleased. I was kissed until I was somewhat deprived of oxygen. My mind went blank, and I even forgot to breathe. Xuan Yu, noticing my stiffness, gently released me, his forehead resting against mine, as he let out a low chuckle.
Silly girl, you don't even know how to breathe anymore.
His lips brushed against the corner of my mouth, bringing a warm sensation.
Do you still want more?
I buried myself in his chest, not not daring to look into his eyes, feeling only that my cheeks were hot enough to fry an egg. Yet my heart felt as though it were cradling a drop of honey, utterly sweet. After a long while, Xuan Yu stroked my head, placed a gentle kiss on my forehead, and said in a tender voice,
Get some good rest. Once your body is fully recovered, we will love you properly. If we keep kissing you like this, we might not be able to resist devouring you.
After saying those words, Xuan Yu straightened up and walked away without looking back, as if fearing that staying even a second longer would truly make him lose control. He left me lying alone in bed, dumbfounded, screaming at the top of my lungs in my head. What kind of suggestive words were those? That dog Xuan Yu is really getting more and more out of hand. But then again, I like it. As the days went by, my body gradually recovered, and Xuan Yu's doting on me became increasingly blatant, reaching a point where he granted almost every request. When I wanted to eat osmanthus cake from outside the palace, he had guards ride on fast horses to buy it. When I wanted to look at the stars, he had people build a stargazing platform in the courtyard of Hibiscus Pavilion. When I complained that the palace jewelry styles were outdated, he ordered the imperial tailors and craftsmen to work overnight, creating all kinds of novel designs. But this exclusive favor eventually aroused the resentment of others. The first to show discontent was the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager already disliked me because of my humble origin. Now, seeing Xuan Yu neglecting the rest of the harem for me, she harbored even more grievances. It was only because I had saved Xuan Yu's life that she didn't openly target me. On this day, my body was fully recovered. According to palace protocol, I had to go to Signing Palace to pay my respects to the Empress Dowager. I got myself properly dressed and took Linger with me to Signing Palace. Just as I reached the palace doors, I heard the conversation between the Empress Dowager and Xuan Yu inside.
Your Majesty, the Lin faction has just been eliminated, and the court is not yet stable. Recently, you have made drastic reforms to the administration, thou effective. It has caused discontent among many veteran officials. Sometimes haste may instead backfire.
The Empress Dowager's voice carried a hint of majesty, commanding respect without anger.
Yes, sir. We know our limits. Rest assured, mother, I have my own considerations.
Xuan Yu's voice was flat, revealing no emotion. Just as I was about to step into the hall, I heard the Empress Dowager shift the conversation and bring me up.
Your Majesty, I must also remind you not to dote on noble consort Cui too much. She comes from a humble background and lacks both talent and virtue. Now, relying on your favor, she is unmatched in her prominence in the palace. This will inevitably cause gossip among the servants and invite criticism.
TSK. Here it comes. Here it comes. As expected, they couldn't bypass me. Isn't it just doting on me alone? If they say the harem will fall into chaos, I think sharing the favor would make it even more chaotic. Everyone would be jealous and plotting against each other. How could that compare to the peace of exclusive favor? Besides, lacking talent and virtue, if it weren't for me, your son would have been assassinated by Chancellor Lin long ago. Would he still be sitting here talking to you? I complained wildly in my mind, my footsteps freezing on the spot, as I wondered if I should find an excuse to slip away.
There are not many people in the harem now. Your Majesty, you should consider holding a draft.
The Empress Dowager's words were like a clap of thunder, exploded in my ears.
Expanding the imperial harem and producing heirs is the royal family's top priority. As the emperor, how can you ignore this just for one woman?
No. There is also this turn of events. An imperial selection. No way. Absolutely not. If a bunch of beautiful women are selected into the palace, how am I supposed to just get by in peace? If that dog Xuan Yu gets lured away by other women, won't my days of enjoying his exclusive favor be over? Besides, just the thought of Xuan Yu smiling at other women and bestowing rewards on them makes my heart feel so sour, like a jar of vinegar has been overturned. No. I must stop this. Rewind 1 minute for me. With a single thought, I immediately activated my rewind ability and instantly returned to the exact moment I had just reached the palace entrance. Without waiting for the Empress Dowager to finish her sentence, I lifted my skirt, walked inside quickly, and curtsied. Greetings to your Imperial Majesty, the Empress Dowager. May the Empress Dowager enjoy peace and auspiciousness. May your Majesty enjoy eternal peace. With her speech suddenly interrupted by me, the Empress Dowager's expression instantly darkened. She gave me a harsh glare, her eyes overflowing with displeasure. Not to be outdone, I lifted my head and glared fiercely at Xuan Yu, cursing him in my heart. This is all your fault. You can't even handle your own mother, and now I have to clean up the mess. If you dare to hold an imperial selection, I will never talk to you again. Seeing me, The coldness in Xuan Yu's eyes instantly vanished, replaced by a warmth full of smiles. He quickly walked over, stretched out his hand to help me up, and held my hand tightly.
Empress Mother, Jinner is the love of my life. She is not some untalented or virtue-lacking woman. She is my wife, and the person I will protect with my very life. Naturally, I will love her and protect her.
He paused for a moment, looking at the Empress Dowager with resolute eyes, and spoke every single word with powerful emphasis.
As for the imperial selection, there is no need. In my imperial harem, having Jinner alone is more than enough. In this lifetime, I only want Jinner.
He looked at me with a curled lip, his eyes brimming with a gentle smiling warmth. That warmth was like sunlight, instantly dispelling all the insecurity and bitterness in my heart. I could clearly feel my face burning up, unbelievably hot, even the tips of my ears turning completely red. My fingers curled up unconsciously, holding Xuan Yu's hand tight, my heart swelling with sweetness.
Your Majesty, as the Emperor, you must prioritize the bigger picture. Expanding the royal lineage is of paramount importance. How can you, for a woman of low birth, disregard the rules of our ancestors? I am the Emperor, but I am also a husband.
Xuan Yu put his arm around my waist, protecting me behind him, looking straight at the Empress Dowager with calm dignity.
Empress Mother often says that only when husband and wife are in harmony and the household is peaceful can there be peace under heaven. Harmony between husband and wife is precisely my bigger picture as a husband. My position of Empress will always be reserved for Jinner. Other than her, I will marry no one else. Having said all this to Mother, you must be tired. This son and Jinner shall take our leave first.
After saying this, without waiting for the Empress Dowager's response, Xuan Yu took me by the waist and strode out of the signing palace, leaving the Empress Dowager alone in the hall, fuming with rage. Upon leaving the signing palace, Xuan Yu dismissed the palace maids and guards around us. Holding my hand, he walked into the Xinfeng pavilion of the Imperial Garden. He turned and pinned me against the pavilion pillar, looking down at me with eyes full of playful amusement.
If you didn't want me to hold the draft, why didn't you just say so? Why did you secretly retract your message? Were you afraid I would choose other concubines and abandon you?
I turned my head away, refusing to look at him, and spoke stubbornly. No, I wasn't. I just happened to walk to the door. It was just a coincidence. Who says I'm afraid you'll abandon me, even if you hold the draft? I wouldn't care. Yet, in my mind, I began counting the leaves on the peach tree next to the pavilion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, attempting to distract myself and hide my fluster.
Oh, a coincidence?
Xuan Yu raised an eyebrow. He reached out to pinch my chin, forcing me to look at him, his thumb gently caressing my lips.
Then why did you retract it? Just now, you were even scolding me in your heart, saying that if I dared to hold the draft, you would never speak to me again.
I had forgotten. I hadn't expected him to hear my inner thoughts so clearly. My cheeks grew even hotter. My eyes darted around, not daring to meet his gaze, and I counted the leaves faster and faster. 50. 52. I recalled it simply because I wanted to. Does your Majesty have a problem with that? He suddenly leaned down, his dark, bright eyes instantly magnifying before me. His warm lips gently brushed against the corner of mine, like a dragonfly skimming the water. Yet it caused a grand display of fireworks to erupt in my heart. An uncontrollable flutter spread throughout my entire body. His voice was low and seductive, against my ear, carrying a hint of temptation.
My lady can do whatever she pleases. I will yield to your every whim. In my imperial harem, you are the only one for the rest of my life. There will never be a selection of new consorts. Never.
I give up. I utterly give up. Xuan Yu always knew exactly how to tug at my heartstrings. A single sentence, a single kiss, and I completely disarmed and surrendered. With a flushed face, I buried myself in his chest, muffledly. Yet, in response, I wrapped my arms around his waist, feeling his warm embrace. My heart filled with a profound sense of security. Xuan Yu chuckled softly, reaching out to gently stroke my hair. He held me tightly in his arms, resting his chin against my forehead, his voice tender.
Jinner, for the rest of my days, I want no one but you.
I thought that with the fall of the Lin faction and noble consort Lin's banishment to the cold palace, my days would finally become peaceful. But I never expected that Lin Chuchu still hadn't given up, harboring a malicious intent. She wanted to put me to death. On that day, the weather was clear and beautiful. As usual, I was sunbathing in the courtyard of Furong Pavilion. Linger went to the small kitchen to get me some chilled plum soup. I was the only one in the courtyard. As I basked in the sun, a faint exotic fragrance suddenly drifted past my nose. The scent was sweet and inviting, yet carried an barely perceptible hint of something sinister. At first, I didn't pay much attention, thinking the peonies in the courtyard had bloomed. But before long, I felt dizzy and lightheaded, and my whole body went weak. My vision went black, and I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, everything around me was pitch black. The air was thick with the smell of mold, dust, and a faint hint of blood. A chilly wind blew in through the broken window frames, stinging my face. It took me a while to recover and adjust to the dim light to clearly see my surroundings. This was a dilapidated side hall, located deep within the cold palace. Cobwebs hung everywhere. The tables and chairs were covered in a thick layer of dust, and moss grew in the corners. Clearly, no one had been here for a very long time, and standing before me was a woman in tattered clothes. Her hair was a messy, tangled web draped over her shoulders and obscuring most of her face. Her face was covered in dirt and tear stains, except for her eyes, which were bloodshot and filled with a venomous mad light. She glared at me fixedly, like a wild beast waiting to devour its prey. It was Lin Chuchu. After she was banished to the cold palace, I thought she would fade into obscurity from then on and spend the rest of her days in the cold palace. I never expected that she could actually bribe the guards of the cold palace, escape from it, and even abduct me to this remote side hall. Seeing me awake, Lin Chuchu began to laugh hideously. The laughter was sharp and piercing. It echoed through the empty hall, sending chills down my spine.
You're awake, Cui Xiajin. You've finally fallen into my hands.
She walked toward me step by step, holding a crude whip in her hand, its tip wrapped with sharp iron thorns.
I am going to slice your flesh off piece by piece, then throw it into a pot to stew into a soup and feed it to Xuan Yu. Let him taste exactly what his beloved woman tastes like. How about that?
I suppressed the terror in my heart, pretending to be calm, and said with earnest gravity, Chuchu, human meat doesn't taste good. It is tough and gamey, with a strong, unpleasant odor. His Majesty has such a picky palate, usually unable to tolerate even a hint of gaminess. He definitely won't eat it. Why must you do this? You are merely trapping yourself in your own web. Trapping myself, Lin Chuchu sneered, raising the whip in her hand and lashing it fiercely across my stomach. The iron thorns scraped through my flesh, leaving a burning bloody welt. The pain made me gasp sharply, and cold sweat broke out instantly.
If not for you and Xuan Yu, how could my Lin family have ended up like this? This empire should have belonged to our Lin family in the first place. Xuan Yu, that ungrateful bastard. My Lin family helped him to the throne, yet he turned around and wiped us out entirely. I want him to taste the pain of losing the one he loves most. That is a bit ridiculous, isn't it?
Frowning and enduring the pain, I looked her straight in the eyes. Your Lin family's support for His Majesty was never out of sincerity. You only wanted to find a puppet emperor so you could keep the real power in your own hands. You plotted treason and tried to assassinate the emperor. To end up like this is entirely your own doing.
How can you blame that on me and His Majesty? Xuan Yu was always just a dog to our family.
Having her thoughts exposed by me, Lin Chuchu shrieked with bloodshot eyes, looking completely mad.
If not for the Lin family, how could a bastard born of a slave ever sit on the imperial throne? Back then, when he knelt before my father, wagging his tail and begging, pleading with my father to support him, we should have killed him to eliminate any future trouble. It was my father's soft heart that nurtured a tiger, bringing about disaster and leading to our ruin today.
She pulled a sharp dagger from her robe, its blade gleaming cold and sharp in the dim light. Staring straight at me, her knuckles turning white from her tight grip, she muttered to herself,
How could he kill my father? I will avenge my father and avenge the Lin family.
Bound to the cold stone pillar by a thick hemp rope, with my hands tied behind my back. My wrists throbbed with sharp pain. There was absolutely no way to retreat. Looking at her crazed state, I knew that if I couldn't find a way to escape today, I might truly meet my end here. Chuchu, calm down. We can talk about anything. As I spoke, intentionally stalling for time to keep her attention on me, I quietly moved my fingers until I felt the piece of wood hidden in my sleeve. It was a peach blossom hairpin I usually used for embroidery. I had sharpened it some time ago, originally intending to use it for self-defense. I never expected it to actually come in handy today. Using the sharp edge of the wooden hairpin, I cut the hemp rope binding my wrists little by little. The hemp rope was very thick, making it extremely difficult to cut. Wood splinters dug into my fingertips, making me frown in pain. But I didn't dare to stop, only able to grit my teeth and persevere, silently praying in my heart that Xuan Yu would soon notice I was missing and come to save me quickly. But just as I finished speaking, Lin Chuchu seemed to be triggered. With bloodshot eyes, holding the dagger, she viciously stabbed me in the stomach. A sharp, intense pain struck, as if a fire were burning inside my stomach. Losing the strength in my hand, the wooden piece fell to the ground, making a sharp clinking sound. Fresh blood instantly gushed from the wound, soaking my clothes, dripping down my pant legs onto the ground, mixing with the blood from the old wound on my chest. The pain made my whole body tremble, and my vision went dark in waves, almost causing me to faint.
Cui Xiajin, do you think Xuan Yu will come to save you?
Lin Chuchu squatted in front of me, using the tip of the dagger to lift my chin. Her eyes were filled with malice and madness.
When he sees you covered in blood, and sees you die right before him, will his heart break with grief? Ha 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 ha. I cannot wait to see Xuan Yu's angry, desperate, and broken look. That will certainly be a magnificent sight.
She paused, her smile becoming even more sinister.
Oh, right. I should actually thank Xuan Yu. If he hadn't banished me to the cold palace, where else would I have found such a hidden place to deal with you? This place is deserted. Even if you scream your lungs out, no one will come to save you.
So, this place was still inside the imperial palace, right in the ruined side palace near the cold palace. That bastard Xuan Yu. I'm right under his nose. Can you actually find me or not? Am I really going to die here? I haven't even told you that I love you yet. I haven't become your empress yet. I haven't seen all the wonders of this world with you yet. I cannot die. I cried out anxiously in my heart. The pain from the wound grew more and more intense. My consciousness began to fade, but I gritted my teeth and held on desperately, refusing to let myself pass out. Taking advantage of Lin Chuchu talking to herself, immersed in her own madness and the pleasure of revenge, I endured the agonizing pain. With my hand, which had a small cut on it, I felt around on the ground. Finally, I found the wooden shard. I began sawing at the hemp rope again. This time, I used every ounce of strength in my body. Even though my fingertips were worn bloody and raw, I didn't stop. The hemp rope was worn down bit by bit. Finally, just as Lin Chuchu raised her knife again, aiming to plunge it into my chest, the hemp rope snapped with a loud pop, breaking completely. I instantly broke free from the restraints, using the very last ounce of my strength. At the exact moment, Lin Chuchu's knife lunged at me. I violently dodged to the side, causing her to miss her target and fall heavily to the ground, with the dagger clattering beside her. The dagger also dropped to the side. Taking the opportunity, I grabbed the hemp rope on the ground, looped it behind her neck from behind, pinned her hard against the stone pillar, and pulled the hemp rope tight with all my might. My movements were swift and clean. Thank goodness that back in the modern world, I had learned some grappling techniques from my grandfather. It finally came in handy today. Bound tightly, Lin Chuchu struggled like mad. She spewed all kinds of foul language from her mouth, staring at me with a venomous glare, as if she wanted to swallow me alive. But when her gaze shifted to the wound on my belly that was still bleeding profusely, she suddenly burst out laughing. That laughter was full of triumph and malice.
So what if you broke free? You are still gravely injured. You won't survive for long. Even if Xuan Yu comes, all he will see is your corpse.
As my tense muscles relaxed, the effects of the adrenaline gradually faded. The pain from the wound hit me like a tidal wave, making my vision go black with agony. My entire body lost its strength, unable to hold myself up any longer. My legs buckled, and I collapsed to my knees. I curled up instinctively, pressing my hand against the wound on my belly, in an attempt to stop the gushing blood. But the blood was like a broken string of pearls, impossible to stop.
Jinner.
A familiar voice came from outside the hall, filled with anxiety, panic, and ultimate rage. I looked up to see Xuan Yu rushing in with giant strides, followed by a crowd of imperial guards and secret agents. His hair was disheveled, his imperial robe torn by branches, and his face covered in sweat and panic. Seeing me kneeling on the ground covered in blood, his eyes instantly turned bloodshot, with immense heartache and anger, as if he wanted to tear the entire world apart. Lin Chuchu's ropes were not tied tightly, and under her frantic struggles, they gradually came loose. Seeing Xuan Yu enter, her eyes turned red with fury. She picked up the dagger from the ground and lunged toward me to stab me, screaming wildly.
I will kill you. I will avenge the Lin family. You court death.
Xuan Yu reacted with swift eyes and hands, his figure flashing forward. He kicked Lin Chuchu away with immense force. With a powerful kick, he sent Lin Chuchu flying. Lin Chuchu crashed heavily against a stone pillar, spitting up fresh blood. The short knife also clattered to the ground, leaving her unable to get back up. Xuan Yu rushed to my side with quick steps, gently cradling me in his arms with the utmost care, his movement so tender, as if holding a rare and precious treasure. Terrified that even the slightest force would cause me pain, his voice trembled with obvious panic, on the absolute verge of tears.
Jinner, how are you? Don't scare us. Please wake up. Imperial physician. Summon the imperial physician immediately.
He looked down at the wound on my abdomen, the rage in his eyes deep enough to consume someone whole. He roared at the guards.
Someone, come quickly. Drag Lin Chuchu out for us, and execute her by 1,000 cuts. Let her suffer every pain in this world, to pay for what she has done.
The guards immediately stepped forward and dragged the dying Lin Chuchu away. Quiet finally returned to the hall, leaving only Xuan Yu's anxious calls and my weak breaths, forcing back the agonizing pain. I parted my lips slightly, forcing a weak smile. I reached out and grasped Xuan Yu's hand, my fingertips ice cold, my voice as faint as a whisper. Next time, you are not allowed to lose me again. Xuan Yu held me tightly in his arms, resting his chin against my forehead, his voice laced with a sob, as he repeated over and over again.
I am sorry, Jinner. It is our fault. It is my fault for failing to protect you and making you suffer so much. Never again. I will never let you leave my sight again, nor will I ever let you come to any harm. Never again.
From then on, Xuan Yu never dared to let me go anywhere alone again. He specially selected from the Imperial Guard 20 of the most skilled and loyal guards to serve as my personal bodyguards. Wherever I went, they followed. Even the courtyard of Furong Pavilion was guarded so tightly that not even a fly could get in. He also replaced all the servants in Furong Pavilion with his own trusted confidants, eliminating all potential hidden dangers. Terrified that any other mishap might happen to me, life gradually returned to peace. After Xuan Yu took personal control of the government, he was diligent in state affairs, reformed the court administration, reduced taxes and corvée labor, built water conservancy projects, appointed talented scholars from humble backgrounds to important posts, and cracked down on corrupt officials. The people lived and worked in peace and contentment within the imperial court. Vitality was also gradually restored, showing a thriving and prosperous scene. As for me, I remained his noble consort Cui, guarding my Furong Pavilion, living days of being held in the palm of Xuan Yu's hand and thoroughly spoiled by him. In front of the window of Furong Pavilion, there grew an osmanthus tree. It was planted by Xuan Yu himself. He said that when the osmanthus flowers bloomed, the entire courtyard would be filled with fragrance, allowing me to smell the floral scent every single day. This osmanthus tree had bloomed twice now. I learned to make sweet osmanthus honey from the imperial chefs, and I made it twice. The first time I made it, I was in a complete rush. I put in the wrong ingredients, mistook salt for sugar, and accidentally added way too many sweet osmanthus flowers. The osmanthus honey I brewed was salty and bitter. Xuan Yu took a bite, his brow furrowed into a tight knot. That night, he got food poisoning, with vomiting and diarrhea, which highly amused the palace servants, and it got me scolded by Xuan Yu for several days. But he still kept that jar of awful sweet osmanthus honey and placed it on the shelf in his study. The second time I made it, I had some experience, so I was extremely careful and didn't put in the wrong ingredients, nor did anyone get food poisoning, but it just didn't taste very good. It was sweet but had a bitter aftertaste, and the fragrance of the osmanthus was rather faint. Yet Xuan Yu pinched his nose, ate every single bite of it, and even said that since his jinner made it himself, he had to finish it no matter how bad it tasted. Eating it filled my heart with a bittersweet sweetness. We also raised a little dog in Furong Pavilion. Xuan Yu brought it back when he went on an inspection tour outside the palace. It was snow white all over, and round and chubby, like a little dumpling, so I named him Xiao Tuan. Xiao Tuan had a gentle temperament and was adorable, making him extremely endearing. But this little guy was incredibly biased. He always clung to Xuan Yu and wouldn't get close to me. Every time I wanted to hold it, it would squirm away and run off, throwing itself at Xuan Yu's feet, wagging his tail to act cute, rubbing its little head against Xuan Yu's pant leg. It made my teeth itch with frustration, and I couldn't help but complain that I raised a traitor. But in the end, I finally discovered the reason why Xiao Tuan was so close to Xuan Yu. Xuan Yu would always secretly hide a meaty bone on himself, and when I wasn't paying attention, he would secretly feed it to Xiao Tuan, using the scent of meat to lure Xiao Tuan into clinging to him. Once, I caught him secretly feeding Xiao Tuan a meat bone. Caught red-handed, I scolded him with my hands on my hips in anger. Well, Xuan Yu, you actually bribed Xiao Tuan on the sly. You're really more of a dog than Xiao Tuan is. The nickname Dog Xuan Yu was indeed well deserved. Seeing me all puffed up with anger, Xuan Yu doubled over with laughter. He reached out, pulled me into his arms, and leaned down to kiss my forehead.
My jinner is jealous. Then we will not feed Xiao Tuan anymore. We will leave all the meat bones for jinner, and we will only cling to jinner alone. Okay.
Coaxed by him like this, all my anger vanished into thin air. I could only blush and bury my face in his chest, letting him tease me, while my heart was filled with sweetness. I thought such happy days would go on forever, but fate always loves to play jokes. It gave me a grand moment of joy, only to take it all back. That day, the autumn air was crisp and clear. I was by the window, embroidering a sachet to give to Xuan Yu for his birthday. Embroidered on it was Xuan Yu's name, along with a pair of mandarin ducks, symbolizing being a devoted couple and growing old together. As I was embroidering, a sudden sharp pain gripped my chest, as if an invisible hand were squeezing my heart tightly, forcing me to stop what I was doing instantly. Clutching my chest, I began to cough violently. A sweet, metallic taste rushed up my throat, and the smell of blood filled my nose and mouth. After a fit of violent coughing, I spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. It fell onto the snow-white embroidery fabric, blooming into a glaringly red plum blossom, staining the embroidered mandarin ducks crimson.
Your Highness.
Linger had just walked in carrying a plate of grapes. Seeing this scene, she turned pale with fright, the plate in her hands crashing to the floor, sending grapes rolling everywhere. She quickly rushed over to support me, her voice trembling with tears.
What is wrong with you? This servant will go summon the imperial physician right away. Right away.
Don't make a fuss, I gasped, pulling Linger back. My fingertips ice cold, my body shaking uncontrollably. Especially His Majesty. Don't let him know, lest he worries. He has had so much to deal with in court lately and is already tired enough. Don't make him worry about me anymore. With red eyes, Linger nodded, then turned and quietly went to summon the physician, not daring to make a sound. But paper cannot wrap fire forever. Xuan Yu found out anyway. When he returned from court, the moment he entered Hibiscus Pavilion, he saw the blood on the floor and the blood stains on the embroidery fabric. In an instant, his face turned deathly pale. Before he could even take off his court robes, he rushed into the inner chambers, seeing me leaning weakly against the daybed, completely pale and bloodless. The anxiety in his heart instantly peaked.
Jinner, how are you?
He quickly walked to my side and took my hand, the warmth of his fingertips making my heart tremble. His brow was furrowed tight, his eyes filled with panic and heartache.
What happened? Why are you coughing up blood? Where is the imperial physician?
What did the imperial physician say? Leaning against the soft pillow, I looked at him, covered in the dust of his journey, and saw the deep worry in his eyes. I smiled, speaking softly. It is nothing serious. The weather has just been dry lately, causing some internal heat. I only coughed a few times. Do not worry. Why did you rush here without even changing your clothes? In such a frantic hurry. You look like a reckless young boy.
And you still say it is nothing serious.
Xuan Yu frowned, reaching out to gently caress my cheek. His tone carried a hint of reproach, but far more of it was heartache.
You are coughing up blood, yet you still try to hide it from us. Are you trying to worry us to death? You foolish girl, you do not even know how to take care of your own body.
Worried sick. He immediately summoned the entire Imperial Academy of Medicine to diagnose and treat me. A crowd of imperial physicians gathered around to feel my pulse, their brows furrowing deeply. After a long silence, they finally knelt together on the ground to report to Xuan Yu, their voices tinged with a sense of helplessness.
Your Majesty, noble consort Cui's condition is an unstable soul. This is the result of defying fate and frequently using her special power. The noble consort does not belong to this world to begin with. Now that her soul is deteriorating day by day, we fear her days are numbered.
An unstable soul. Her days are numbered. These 8 words were like a sudden clap of thunder, exploding in Xuan Yu's ears. It also brought me to a complete awakening. I indeed did not belong to this world. I was merely a soul from another realm, attaching myself to the body of Cui Xiajin. Coming to this era, the ability to undo was already an act against heaven, and my frequent use of it had long damaged my soul. Now my energy is completely spent, and it is time for me to leave. But Xuan Yu refused to accept this outcome. He violently kicked over the table beside him, the teacups on the table, and the memorials scattered all over the floor, making a loud noise. He glared at the imperial physicians and roared, roaring.
We do not care what method you use. You must cure Jinner. If you cannot cure her, we will execute your entire families and have the whole Imperial Academy of Medicine buried with her.
The physicians trembled with fear, kowtowing repeatedly, yet they had no choice but to brace themselves, prescribing and preparing medicine for me. Every day, they brewed medicine for me to drink, trying every possible way, just to keep me alive for one more day. The medicine was very bitter. The medicine was very yellow, so bitter that it made me frown. Drinking it every time felt like torture, so Xuan Yu would sit by the bed, holding the medicine bowl in one hand and preserved fruits in the other, patiently feeding me. Only after watching me finish the medicine would he heave a sigh of relief. He would even personally stew rock sugar pear water for me to soothe my throat and quench my thirst, and to dispel the bitter taste of the medicine. Every time Xuan Yu left the imperial court, he would put aside all his official duties to stay by my side, chatting with me for a while, basking in the sun, and watching Xiao Tuan romp and jump between us. The sunlight spilled over our bodies, so warm. Xuan Yu's palm was warm, tightly holding my hand. Xiao Tuan rubbed against my feet. Everything was so beautiful, like a dream, that I was reluctant to wake up from. I looked at his gentle profile, and the heartache and reluctance in his eyes, thinking silently in my heart, Xuan Yu, it is so good to have met you in this lifetime, to be loved by you like this. I am already very satisfied. I will never call you Dog Xuan Yu again. You are the one I love most in this lifetime, my only husband. It was just that. My body continued to waste away day by day. My face grew paler and paler. My strength grew weaker and weaker, and even speaking became an effort. My recall ability was also growing weaker and weaker. Just now, I tried to initiate a recall. As I expected, it had shrunk from the original 2 minutes to less than 1 minute. It was gone in a flash. 10 days later, I tried to initiate the recall again. The time was even shorter than a minute, almost just an instant, and then it had no effect at all. It didn't even cause a single ripple. I knew my time was running out. Lately, I kept having the same recurring dream. The scenes in the dream were both familiar and strange. It was the world from before I traveled through time. In the dream, there were tall buildings, heavy traffic, my familiar family and friends, and a blurry figure calling out my name in the real world.
Yunjin,
He said mysteriously.
you will soon leave this world and return to where you belong. Everything here is but a fleeting illusion. Once you wake up from the dream, it will be time to go.
In this dynasty, as Cui Xiajin, my life had already begun to count down. The sunlight slipped through my fingers and shone on the sachet resting on my chest. That was the birthday gift I embroidered for Xuan Yu. I had worked on it for so long, undoing the stitches and sewing it again, over and over. But needlework really requires natural talent. Even though I learned from the palace embroiderers for days, the character Yu on the sachet was still crooked and messy, looking like chicken scratch. It was incredibly ugly. Woof, woof, woof. Xiao Tuan, curled up in my arms, whimpered softly in protest, nuzzling his head against my hand, as if to comfort me. I smiled and gently rubbed his head, my heart warming up. This little guy, just like his master, always knew exactly what I was thinking. Xuan Yu seemed to have sensed something. On a bright and sunny day, he took me to the willow tree outside the palace, the very one in front of his mother's grave. Underneath that willow tree, he held a simple yet grand wedding for us. There was no tedious etiquette, nor any civil or military officials. It was just him and me, along with the street vendor who had sold us the hairpin before, who happily served as our wedding witness with a bright smile. Red silk filled the air, fluttering gently with the wind. Dressed in a bright red wedding robe, Xuan Yu walked up to me, took my hand, his eyes filled with deep tenderness, and word by word, he made a vow.
Two families unite in marriage, making a covenant in this hall, to seal a blissful union forever, as a perfectly matched couple, seeing the peach blossoms in full bloom today. May we bring harmony to our home and family, with a promise to grow old together. We write this on the finest paper, so that this pledge of love is clearly recorded in the registry of fates. This is our testimony.
Under the blue sky and white clouds, amidst the birds chirping and cicadas singing, a gentle breeze blew by, swaying the willow branches. Everything was unbelievably beautiful. My consciousness began to fade, and my body grew colder and colder, as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. Instinctively, I leaned into Xuan Yu's warm embrace, drawing warmth from him. Xuan Yu, I called out to him softly, my voice weak. You and Tuanzi must take good care of yourselves. Xuan Yu, you are not allowed to complain that the sachet I made is ugly. Otherwise, I won't let you off even as a ghost. Xuan Yu, even though the osmanthus honey doesn't taste good, if you miss me in the future, make some yourself to eat. Remember, put less sugar. Xuan Yu held me tightly in his arms. His body was trembling, and his voice carried a hint of a sob as he responded over and over again.
All right, I will do as Jinner says. I will listen to you.
He lowered his head, kissed my forehead, and spoke with an incredibly gentle voice.
My wife, today is our wedding day. Shouldn't you call me husband?
I twitched the corners of my mouth, using all the strength in my body, and whispered softly, all right, husband. Xuan Yu is Yunjin's young husband, and Yunjin is Xuan Yu's young wife. These words were what I had hidden deep in my heart, but had never said aloud. After saying this, my consciousness fell completely into endless darkness. Xuan Yu's warm embrace was my final reliance. Voice of Huaking, touching the world with sound. I am today's announcer, Yunjin. Next, let us move on to the campus news. This year, our school will welcome over 5,000 new students. The familiar broadcasting tone echoed from the microphone. I turned off the play button, let out a sigh of relief, rubbed my sore throat, tidied up the draft, and walked out of the school's recording studio. Having traveled to ancient times and struggled to survive for 5 bitter years, I was finally back now, back to the world where I belong. Only, in my heart, there was an empty void, as if something was missing. Mr. Li, the advisor of the radio station, ran over, with a smile on his face.
Yunjin, the school has a welcoming ceremony for new students next week. We need a female host. You're experienced, so I'll sign you up for it.
I nodded and smiled. All right. Don't worry, Mr. Li. I'll definitely do a good job. Mr. Li looked at me with concern, frowning slightly.
Are you all right? Since the start of this semester, I've noticed you seem very exhausted.
Always spacing out. Is it because you've been too tired lately? I spent 5 miserable years after traveling back to ancient times, tasting all the bitters and sweets of life, and even met that dog emperor who loved and protected me. Of course I'm tired, I thought to myself silently, but said with a smile. Maybe because the new semester just started, and there is a lot to do. I'll be fine after a few days of rest. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Li. Mr. Li looked like he understood, patted my shoulder, and urged again.
Right. Once the freshmen arrive, we need to prepare for recruitment. Try to recruit a handsome guy for me this semester. to add some vitality to our radio station.
I patted my chest and promised with a smile, "Don't worry, Mr. Lee. I will definitely find a representative face for our radio station." The freshmen could be said to have extended the lives of the lifeless seniors. Every time a massive crowd of freshmen arrived, the sophomores and juniors were like a swarm of locusts, running to the welcoming area to scout out younger boys and girls. My roommate was one of them. In the evening, I returned to the dorm. My roommate rushed over with an excited look, shaking my arm, with a face full of excitement.
Jin, I went to welcome the freshmen today and met a super handsome younger guy. He is tall with long legs and has heavenly looks. I think he is from the School of Computer Science.
I was being tortured by the welcoming draft for the radio station, having a massive headache, and asked perfunctorily, "That is great. Did you get his contact info? Go get him." No. My roommate leaned in close to me, looking very secretive, and winked.
But he said he wanted to join the broadcasting station, so I gave him your contact info. Jin, this is a great opportunity. You have to seize it.
I gave her backside a gentle swat and joked, "You're so enthusiastic. Selling me out just like that." As I spoke, my phone vibrated. A WeChat friend request popped up. My roommate got even more excited than me. She leaned over to look at my phone and urged,
Quick, add him. Jin, use your charm to conquer him. I want to ship you two."
I shook my head with a smile and opened WeChat. The moment I saw the friend request message, the smile froze on my face. My mind went completely blank. My heart felt as if it were gripped by an invisible hand, thumping wildly, beating so fast it almost leapt out of my chest. I put my phone down, unlocked it again, and checked repeatedly, terrified that I had misread it. Seeing me like this, my roommate was completely bewildered. What of it?
Jin, did something happen?
I shook my head, my eyes fixed solely on those two words on the screen. My fingertips trembled, and I couldn't speak a word. On the request message, it clearly read, "Xuan Yu." Following the address my roommate gave me, I arrived at the school's lakeside pavilion. The night was deepening, and the moonlight spilled over the lake's surface, shimmering and glistening. Inside the pavilion stood a young man in white. He wore a black baseball cap, with his dark hair tucked beneath the brim, revealing a smooth forehead. His slender figure stood motionless in the pavilion, his back straight and upright, looking so much like the one in the imperial palace, wearing imperial robes, a dignified and imposing emperor. The moonlight spilled over him, casting a soft, glowing halo around his figure. The young man slowly turned around, took off his baseball cap, and revealed a familiar face. His features were as beautiful as a painting, his dark eyes still clear and bright, with a faint, subtle smile playing on his lips. He looked exactly like the man in my memory. His features looked just as they did 3 years ago. Meeting again today like old friends, I stood where I was, my feet feeling as if they were nailed to the ground, not daring to take a step forward, terrified that this was just a dream I had dreamed night after night. If I went closer, it would shatter. With every step I took closer, my heart beat a little faster. It wasn't until I stood right in front of him, seeing the tenderness and warmth in his eyes, that I finally knew for sure this was not a dream. This was real. Xuan Yu opened his arms, his smile becoming even more radiant and free, just like back then, outside the palace, holding my hand and calling me his wife.
Jin.
He called my name, his voice tender and soft.
I've come to find you.
A wave of sadness hit me, and all the longing and grievances I had bottled up for so long instantly surged into my heart. Tears began to fall uncontrollably against the wind, and ran toward him, throwing myself into his arms, holding him tightly, tightening my grip again and again, fearing he would be like a mist that scatters away, fearing he would disappear from my life once more. Xuan Yu also held me tightly, wrapping his arms around my waist and resting his chin against my forehead, his voice slightly choked with emotion, yet carrying the joy of regaining what was lost.
Jinner, I promised you that I would never lose you again.